Suspect, but I'll say this. On the First Amendment, I'm a fundamentalist. On the death penalty, I'm an abolitionist. On the economy, I'm a socialist, and on government, I'm an anarchist. So does that help? Yeah. Okay, good. Yes.
When did you know what he just said? You're all clapping.
I mean, some of you are definitely libertarians, aren't you?
We are.
And so you're for full gay rights, right? Full gay rights? Yes. Go ahead.
I've been reading a lot of news stories, and I see all these statistics about, children not graduating. I hear all these statistics about large cities and how the graduation rates are so low. Where is all that money going? If these kids are not learning, and what's going on? What's going on if all these teachers are being paid, and they're being paid decent? I mean, if you look at the news, apparently the Milwaukee teachers are being paid relatively well. So why are the statistics so bad? I mean, you have to please answer that question.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's nationwide.
It is nationwide, and there's a lot of reasons for it, but I'll speak about Chicago very quickly. Yeah, Chicago has a 50% dropout rate, even in spite of Arnie Duncan being our superintendent for years, and it's a huge problem, no doubt about it, and our future is really at stake in this question of education. You cannot have a robust functioning democracy and have that level of people going from dropping out to basically to prison or to the unemployment lines. I mean, the clearest indicator nationwide, but I'm talking about Chicago, the clearest indicator that you'll land up in the criminal justice system is if you drop out of school. The clearest indicator that you drop out of school is your literacy rate. And the clearest indicator that you'll be illiterate occurs in the 3rd grade when you fall a year or 2 years behind other kids. So we know kind of how this pipeline works, but are we willing to interrupt it? Here's the problem in Chicago. Just go ahead. You want to say?
Sir, hasn't I have a teaching degree. I have a license and everything, and I taught schools. But the issue I saw in the classroom was the lack of discipline.
How'd you do? How was your discipline program? Did you do pretty well?
You can have the kids listen when you have 1 or 2 kids that are acting up.
Well, you're right.
And so my question to you is, we have spent millions and millions of dollars statewide, federal-wide. How come the scores remain so low?
How come the fact is it doesn't take money to educate? That's the fact, right?
It doesn't take money to educate.
It doesn't take
CTE job and the weed job, maybe they would learn something. But they'll go home and watch the stupid television all day.
Where are the parents?
We got a policy suggestion on the table. Show your feature. Kill the TV. I agree with that. But the problem is, let me give you a couple of examples of the problem. First, the problem is bureaucracy. You're absolutely right. These systems are top-heavy. So to any city system in the world, it's top-heavy. Second problem is poverty. And if you don't address poverty, you're not serious about addressing the educational crisis. And here's what I mean. I met a kid in a West Side Chicago school, so you don't want to address poverty. But still, I met a kid in a West Side school in Chicago, 12 years old, and this kid had missed 40 days of school because of chronic asthma. His mother has no health insurance. His mother is unemployed. They moved twice in the course of the year. He had to change schools twice because that's policy in Chicago. Now, he's got 3 different schools, 3 different teachers, and he's missed 40 days of school. How do you think he's going to do on a test score? Not very well. And in the richest country in the world, that's an abomination. And again, it comes back to, do you really believe that that kid should have picked you for a parent and then would have done better? Should we take these kids away from those incompetent, lazy parents and give them to you? Do you want to raise them? I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's true. It's ridiculous to kind of blame everything on the schools or the teachers but I still think the schools can do a better job. How can they do a better job? Schools have to be smaller, classrooms have to be smaller, and this is actually budget neutral to some degree. Schools have to be smaller, classrooms have to be smaller. Every kid has to be known well by a caring adult. Every parent has to feel access to the school. I'm going to give you one more shot. You don't agree? I can see you groaning.
I'm a product of Catholic school.
My sympathy.
And I was, and 35 or 40 kids. And then, I went up to Catholic school up to 7th grade. And then I went to public school. And I grew up, born and raised in New Jersey. I was free from William Madison University.
We're right, yeah.
But in any case, when I went to the public school, my reading and comprehension was over and above whatever my public school peers had. In other words, my ability to write sentences and to write and read was above what my and so I'm pretty old, so maybe that whole process is gone by now in terms of what's in the public school. But the issue is that discipline is one of the major issues. And when I was a teacher, I had a class in fourth grade, and one time I had a kid fall off and say a bad word to me, and I had another kid fall off and say a bad word to me in fourth grade, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to call the principal, and the principal came. So, my issue is discipline.
I think that you want to be careful about generalizing from your experience, but I hope you go back into the classroom and do better with the discipline. Look, discipline is, for those of you who are teachers, I'm going to speak to you again one more minute about discipline. The fact is that discipline, like anything else, discipline is something that, and classroom management, we obsess about it in colleges of education, we obsess about it in the classroom, and I think we approach it from a very wrong-headed place. I'll give you an example. There's a fifth grade teacher in Chicago I know named John Wilson, and I love this guy. And he begins every class, every year, he begins by having his kids gather around. These are 10-year-olds. And he says, I want to talk to you about the summer, I want to talk to you about the plans for the year. And then he says, after they talk for a bit, he says, now I want to talk about the rules of the classroom. And all the 10-year-old ears perk up, because when rules are discussed, you want to know where the blow is coming from, and you pay attention. What are the rules? Mr. Wilson says, the first rule is you can wear your hat. Holy cow, the 10-year-old kids are like, really? I can wear my hat? Wow, Mr. Wilson is so cool. You're wearing a hat. You're not having any problem. You're wearing a hat. Oh, good. Number two, let's look at rule number two. You can chew gum. And the kids are like, man, Mr. Wilson is a rebel. He's a radical. He's crazy. He can chew gum. And then there's the third rule. The third rule is this is a learning environment, and we must respect one another and one another's work. Whatever else we do, respect is key. Now, what has Wilson done by doing that? He's created a standard by which any misbehavior can become a point of conversation and a point of discussion and a point of learning, a teachable moment, if you will. And that is a very smart way to do discipline. That means if somebody makes a racial crack, somebody swears at the teacher, all these things become the time to talk and figure it out. The hidden curriculum of that classroom is we are learning to live together. That's a good lesson. It's a lesson that many of us didn't learn all that well. When I teach graduate school, I also teach learning to live together. Some people talk too much, some not enough, and so on. Right down the road from Mr. Wilson's classroom is a school where I went to visit, city of Chicago, and there's a big sign in the cafeteria. It's kind of an aging painting. It says, cafeteria rules. Number one, no running. Number two, no yelling. Number three, no fork fights. No fork fights? And you wonder what horrible thing happened in 1960 to make a fork fight. Nothing about gun fights or fist fights. But that way of doing things, the rules with the punishment, is destined to fail. Whereas I think the notion of teachable moments is a much more robust and serious way to think about this.
I'm a teacher.
I know you are, but calm down. You got a tea party hat on. Go ahead.